Hi, everyone. Judge Andrew Napolitano here for Judging Freedom. Today is Wednesday, December 17th, 2025. My next guest needs no introduction. He is literally the best-known media commentator in the Western world. He is also my former colleague and my friend, Tucker Carlson. Tucker, thank you very much for your time today. I have a lot to ask you about and pick your brain on, and I deeply appreciate your time. Thanks.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. I write a column every Thursday, and my column that comes out late tonight is called Tucker Carlson and the Freedom of Speech. It's about the bizarre efforts of Chuck Schumer and 40 Democrats in the United States Senate to censure you because of what you did not say on your podcast. How dangerous is it for people like you and me that are accustomed to unbridled freedom of speech today? And why is Schumer coming after you? What is he afraid of?
Well, there are a couple levels. I mean, on one level, it's hilarious. I don't think my interview with Nick Fuentes is like a matter of national concern, really, given everything else that's going on. So it's like incredibly small bore. A. B, yeah, this is not just a foretaste. This is kind of where we are now with speech, where both parties have aligned against the core American freedom. In fact, the thing that makes America exceptional, which is the recognition that our right to say what we really believe comes from God, not government, and it cannot be abridged. And that's why it's the first item in the Bill of Rights, of course. So both parties are against that. Now, so that tells you what the future is going to look like. It doesn't reduce our obligation to do it fearlessly anyway, because like the right itself, the obligation itself is something that we're born with. That's my view. But there's something else that bothers me about this, which is it's of course identity politics. Now, I said in my interview with Fuentes, I'm totally opposed to anti-Semitism because I think it's immoral. My religion tells me that. And my sort of civic duty as an American is to say that, because if we allow tribalism to take hold here, the country will be destroyed. And I really believe that. So I don't have any problem at all saying, I say it often and I mean it, anti-Semitism is immoral. But so is any kind of hate against any person on the basis of his DNA. Okay, we can't have blood guilt in the United States. Schumer and the ADL and a lot of the people who were jumping up and down about anti-Semitism, and I'm on their side on that, were the main purveyors of anti-white hate for decades, literally for decades, setting up a system more complex than Jim Crow to keep people down, to prevent people from getting jobs or getting into college or getting federal grants on the basis of their race. Okay, they did that. So the only way out of this is for people like Schumer and for the ADL to say out loud, all forms of hate on the basis of DNA, blood, are immoral, and we will join the fight against them, to repent from what they've been doing. And if they do that, of course, I will send them money and I will support them, because that's the most important thing. You see where this is going. Identity politics leads to Rwanda every single time, and that will happen here. And so we need to think bigger. If you're against anti-Semitism, you have to be precisely as against anti-white hate or anti-black hate, anti-Malaysian hate, whatever. You're against hating people on the basis of how they were born. You are instead committed to treating people on the basis of how they behave. That we said we believe that. We clearly don't, but we need to reestablish that. And that's got to be the baseline. And anyone who's been promoting race hate, as Chuck Schumer and the ADL and many other groups have, American Jewish Congress, all of them, any person who's promoting race hate does not have the moral standing to lecture me about race hate, because I'm against all of it.
Right. But you have an enormous megaphone, universal respect, and the stiffest backbone I know. This is not going to intimidate you. Others that Chuck Schumer may target for political reasons, he may intimidate. That's called chilling. The First Amendment prohibits anybody in the government from using the levers of governmental power available to them to chill the free speech rights of that speech which they hate or fear.
Exactly. And you see it happening. I mean, it happened to the Heritage Foundation, and the guy who runs the Heritage Foundation comes out and issues a statement, partly on my behalf, which probably was not wise, and I get it, but I was friends with him. So, but really on behalf of the principle of freedom of speech. Like you have a right to say what you think, and then if you don't like it, we debate it. We don't kill people, we don't deplatform them, we don't censor them. We rebut bad ideas with what we think are good ideas, and we allow the marketplace of ideas to decide which are better. That is what we are committed to. And because he said that, he's been destroyed. The Heritage Foundation itself has been destroyed. And you have to ask why. It's not a radical position. It's a core conservative position. It's a core American position. And the Heritage Foundation is being destroyed. They just had 2 more trustees resign last night. Not that anyone cares because it's irrelevant already, but the principle matters and the example matters. And why are they doing that? Why are they destroying Heritage? Because the president dared to defend free speech? Because elements of the right, big elements of the right, are totally opposed to free speech. So that's been the thing that I've learned this year. The people I thought were my allies on a deep level, like we disagreed. Maybe we disagree on Israel. That's totally fine with me. I don't mind disagreeing on Israel with anybody.
Right.
What I do mind is watching my country's core promise eradicated. And that's what they're doing by getting rid of free speech.
The administration of Donald Trump has pressured and coerced colleges and universities into suppressing free speech. I mean, 2 years ago, you and I could have gone to Columbia University and held up placards saying we're in favor of the 2-state solution. If we did it today, they'd throw us off campus. If we were students, they'd kick us out of the school. That is government pressure coercing free speech, forcing people into a box. Right. You can say this because it's pro-Israel. You can't say this because it's pro-2-state solution. When I say pro-Israel, I mean pro-Netanyahu.
Well, this is BLM, basically, with a different protagonist. And by the way, the same people who supported BLM, like the ADL, like every major Jewish group supported BLM, which was anti-white. It was designed to hurt white people on the basis of their race. They all supported it. And now they all support this. So again, no American can be on that side because that's what it is to be American. We judge people, and we have a monument on the mall that says this. We judge people on the content of their character. We judge them as individuals. We do not judge them as groups. We do not kill their children because they've done something wrong. We do not imprison their whole family. That's the Eastern view of justice. The Western view of justice is based on the human soul and the dignity of the individual. You deal with the individual. That's our justice system. And that's what's going away. And this is just yet another example of it. But if the right won't stand up for that principle, the primacy of the individual, the sovereignty of the individual, the human soul, then what's the point of having a right? Well, there isn't one, actually.
Do you think that Donald Trump understands that in order to please the donor class, he's funding genocide in Gaza? You talk about killing innocents. This is the slaughter of tens of thousands of innocent people.
And not an accidental slaughter. So you often hear people say, well, in war, innocents die, which is obviously true. It's one of the reasons I think we should think very carefully before joining any war, because the effects are far beyond what they're advertised to be. But this is very different in that, and we know this from the public statements of Israeli cabinet ministers, the point is to make the people who live there, the indigenous occupants, leave so their land can be taken, and killing their children and their women and their parents and their grandparents, killing them on purpose, is in service of that goal. So this is not accidental. This is the intentional murder of innocents in order to achieve a goal, which is the theft of land. But whatever the goal is, we can never take the side of the murder of innocents. We are officially opposed to murdering innocents, period. And when we kill innocents by accident, we admit it. We apologize. If we think it was intentional, we punish the person, including countless U.S. soldiers over the years who've been court-martialed and imprisoned, in some cases executed, for killing innocents in war. That's why we say we're better. And if we sign up for that program and pay for it and endorse it and hurt anyone who criticizes it, which we have done, then how are we not the same morally as the jihadis we claim to hate? And of course, we're not.
Right. I'm chuckling thinking of your interview with Ted Cruz, where he actually told you that God the Father gave Israel to Benjamin Netanyahu. And then, of course, you asked him where he could find it in the Bible, and he was not as literate as you. I'm being charitable in his reading of the scripture. But isn't Donald Trump funding genocide, as Joe Biden did, to please the donor class?
Well, strictly speaking, the U.S. Congress is funding it enthusiastically, right. But I think for sure the executive branch seems to be behind this. I don't think everyone in there is, but I would just say, look, the obvious point, which is we all get carried away. We're all prisoners of the moment we live in. It's happened to me throughout my life. You could find tape of me saying the problem is Muslims. The problem is Islam. I can't even believe I said something like that. The problem is not a religion. The problem is individuals. The problem is a certain ideology. It's clearly not all Muslims. Is it all Indonesians? Really? But I said that. Why did I say that? I'm ashamed of saying that. And I've apologized. Let me apologize again for saying that. Just is that if I ever said it's all Jews because I don't like Mark Levin, it's all Jew. That's a disgusting thing to say. But I've said that about Muslims. So all of us are prisoners of whatever hysteria surrounds us. We're influenced by it. And I think a lot of decent people have been carried away to a point where they're defending what is genocide in Gaza. But it doesn't mean there won't be massive consequences for the country, for their souls, honestly. Right. You can't do that. You need to repent of that. You need to say, I'm sorry I did that. You have to do that, or you imperil like yourself eternally, but you also risk destroying your own country. And that's exactly where we are. And we also need to call out like true radicalism. Laura Loomer, who has like a press pass to the Pentagon, yesterday said we need more Meir Kahanas, okay, the founder of the Jewish Defense League, who was a convicted terrorist. I'm not throwing this around like, oh, he's a terrorist. He was literally a terrorist. Correct. He was murdered in 1990, but under U.S. law, he was a terrorist. He admitted he was convicted twice for bombing people. He admitted he did it. So he was exactly what we say we're fighting against. He was a terrorist, killing innocents to make a political point or achieve a political end. And here you have Laura Loomer endorsing him openly. You've Lindsey Graham saying on tape, if you don't do what Israel wants, God will kill you. You have Mike Huckabee saying exactly the same thing. America will be destroyed unless we follow the lead of Benjamin Netanyahu. This is true extremism. This is what I didn't like about ISIS. It's what I disapproved of with Al-Qaeda. That's why I don't like jihadis. I really don't like any of that. No American should. And all of a sudden, it's flowering in our country. And these are not small people. Mike Huckabee is the U.S. ambassador to Israel. Lindsey Graham is the senior senator from South Carolina. Laura Loomer is all over the executive branch as like an advisor. Like, you can't have this. You have to say that this is wrong. It's getting too crazy. We're going to wind up with real violence if people keep talking this way.
So why did the Congress give Benjamin Netanyahu 56 standing ovations in a 58-minute speech? Is it because their campaigns are funded by AIPAC?
It's such a tough question. I had the smartest conversation, deepest conversation I ever had about this was with Jeff Sachs, who I know is your friend and mine. Right. And he said, yeah, it's the money. Of course, there is blackmail. There are threats. That's all real. It's real the world over. It's not just Israel. It does that, by the way. Of course not. Lots of different countries do that. Lots of different lobbies do that. But there's something deeper. There's like almost a spell. I mean, Huckabee, for example. You really think Huckabee is being threatened? Huckabee's being paid?
No, Mike is more the Israeli ambassador to the U.S. than he is the U.S. ambassador to Israel. Of course.
But he's become a zealot.
See ads on Newsmax that Mike makes while he's the U.S. ambassador for selling Israel first trinkets.
It's right. So it's so degrading to the office, to the State Department, to the U.S. government, to all of us as Americans, to have someone like Huckabee advocating for a foreign country as he's supposed to be advocating for ours. Like, that is degrading. But then you have to, I know Huckabee well, I'm sure you do too. Yes. Nice man. Like, what is this? And I look at him and I see a man under a spell. I mean this, and I'll be mocked for it, but I mean it. I think, and that's what Jeff Sachs, who's a pretty secular guy, I think, but he said, I've watched this for 40 years. There's no practical, conventional explanation for some of this behavior. I mean, I look at Ted Cruz and I'm like, I think I know what's going on. Lindsey Graham, I think I know what's going on. But Mike Huckabee, I think he is under a spell. He is not thinking clearly at all. And so when Mike Huckabee says, and I think Mike Huckabee likes America or did, but when he stands up and says, God will destroy our country if we don't support Bibi, it's like, how could someone ever say something like that? And I don't know the answer, but I think it's more metaphysical than political.
Well, you talk about embracing felons. He embraced Jonathan Pollard, who
It's
is the
unbelievable.
greatest stealer of American secrets in the history of the United States of America. And he stole them and gave them to Israel. And when he got out of jail, he had certain confinements imposed upon him. Trump commuted those confinements. Sheldon Adelson flew him to Israel. Benjamin Netanyahu greeted him. Now Mike greets him in the American embassy. A guy who probably cost American lives by exposing the names of American agents.
And what happened? What did Israel do with those secrets? And it wasn't just this, not like Julian Assange, Ed Snowden stuff. These were actually national secrets.
It did two
things.
Gave
them to the Soviet Union.
Correct. It further developed its the security around its nuclear weapons, because these secrets were how America spies on other countries, and it probably sold it to the old Soviet Union. That's one of the reasons the government was so animated in its prosecution. You know, I like the little guy. I usually side for the defendant in these criminal cases. Not in this case. The evidence of his guilt was overwhelming. The harm was manifest. And then the United States ambassador treats him royally. Is Trump going to start a war in Venezuela?
I don't know. I don't know when this program airs. The one that we're on right now. This thing's maybe live.
We're live now. And then it'll be posted immediately. So now,
my sense is, I don't know the answer. I've certainly been on the phone a lot about it. I have no power. I'm a podcaster, but I'm very interested. And so here's what I know so far, which is that members of Congress were briefed yesterday that a war is coming, and it'll be announced in the address to the nation tonight at 9:00 by the president. Who knows, by the way, if that will actually happen? I don't know. And I never want to overstate what I know, which is pretty limited in general. But a member of Congress told me that this morning. So that's what I know. My opposition to this, and I'm sure if you oppose this, they'll be like, oh, you're a communist, which I'm not. My opposition to it comes from what I've learned from watching closely for the past 25 years since I've been assigned to cover all these stories, including, in Iraq, Afghanistan. Like, I've watched, and there's not been a regime change effort that's benefited the United States or the world in 80 years that I'm aware of. And if there is, tell me what it is. I just don't see any evidence of that. It all seems like a net loss for us. And so this is why they're calling me an anti-Semite, because I was opposed to a regime change war in Iran, and I'm opposed to one in Venezuela, particularly Venezuela, because it's right there and all kinds of things could happen. You say you hate Maduro. We hate Maduro. Imagine what would Venezuela look like without Maduro, and who would replace Maduro? Some absurd, Klaus Schwab acolyte, fake Nobel Prize winner.
Right,
the abortion lady is going to put. Right. I mean, this is all so crazy.
Who's employed by the Mossad, or is at least an asset of the Mossad? I mean, what national security threat to the United States of America is posed by the government of Venezuela? The answer to that is zero.
Yeah.
Is he going to ask the Congress for a declaration of war? Is there going to be some great debate where we see Lindsey Graham going toe-to-toe with Rand Paul? Probably not. He's probably just going to do it.
Well, there's never, of course, I always want to debate over everything because I think it helps elucidate what's at stake. And you want to hear everything you can before making a decision in the hope that it'll be a wise decision. But I doubt there'll be any debate in the Congress, and there will be a couple libertarians who will stand up and be like, oh, you can't do this. And they'll be like, shut up, communist. Just like they were like, shut up, anti-Semite. You don't want a regime change war in Iran. So, I just pray that it won't get to that point, not because I love Maduro, but because how is that good for the United States exactly? And to be a lot more specific, I think the idea is of course, Venezuela is the largest proven oil reserves on the planet. So the question is about oil fundamentally, and who gets it, who extracts it. American companies did. Now they don't. A lot of that oil goes to our enemies, China and Russia. And that's infuriating to some people, probably to the president. And I get it. But what's the best way? Like, if you want Venezuelan oil to go primarily to the United States, or you want to have some influence over it, if you want American companies to extract the oil and improve the infrastructure, probably the last thing you want to do is overthrow the government, because then you have chaos. Then you have total chaos. And who's in charge? The assets are so profound in Venezuela that it's not going to remain a vacuum. You're going to have generals showing up at oil fields or refineries being like, this is mine. I've got the guns. Take it away from me. Then you have China primarily, but also Russia in the background, and they have every incentive to topple the teetering American empire in Venezuela. It's right there. It's in our hemisphere. So, like, there's a lot going on here. You could wind up in a super tough spot. So, you hope that there's a thoughtful approach to this. I don't know if there will be.
So Donald Trump ran, and he repeated this phrase in his inaugural address a year ago. Seems like more than a year ago, after all we've been through with him, as the peace president. He's funded a war in Ukraine. He's funded genocide in Gaza. He's funding a war in Yemen. He attacked the Houthis. Now he's going to start a war in Venezuela. What do you think he thinks about? Why do you think he does this? Is it some sort of a macho thing with him? Or is Marco Rubio just whispering in his ear about how dangerous these socialists in Latin America can be?
I do think there is a difference internally, from what I can tell, between Eastern Europe, Middle East, and Venezuela. So, like, some people who were very opposed to a regime change war in Iran are now advocating for a regime change war in Venezuela. So they're not all of a piece, from what I can tell. I don't work there. I don't go there very often. But so there's that. I think, the macro and I don't know the answer to your question. What's the president thinking? I don't know. But I think the macro point is that, there are a lot of stakeholders in this conversation, and not all of them are elected. And you wonder, how much sovereignty does any Western leader really have? Which is to say, how much ability does any leader have to make independent decisions based on his campaign promises, what he believes, what he thinks is best for his country? I don't know the answer to that, but maybe less than we imagine. And the other point I would make is that it's pretty easy to subvert a president, any president, on the national security front, because these are problems you're told you could solve. Like, what do you do about Social Security or the national debt? Nobody has any freaking clue. It's too hard. No one really wants to try it. The Senate, this is true also.
Right.
But briefers will come to you and be like, there's a bad guy in country X. We can kill him. Our U.S. military is the most powerful in history. We can